right, so this is the opening of the Conservation Commission meeting for Monday, August 24th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. We'll begin with the governor's order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 18, and March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on Norton Cable website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive recording of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So our first item on the agenda is the presentation of floodplain findings concerning the Canoe River at Leonard Street. This is being presented by Mark Dibb of Conduit. So do we have any other items before we open that?
Nope, and Ed, I made you a co-host, so if you want to do the presentation, otherwise I will put it up on the screen.
For the record, I have to accuse.
Okay.
So, good evening, Mark Dibb with Conduit Engineering Group. We're just here for informational purposes to share a study we've been working on with the Conservation Commission regarding a discrepancy we feel there is in the mapping within the FEMA flood zone maps. It encompasses an area from Winneconnet Pond up the Canoe River to Leonard Street in the area of Leonard and 123. So I'm going to give you over to Ed Capone. He's going to do a quick presentation, and then if there's any questions, we'll go through that. So this is Ed Capone, a resident of Norton.
Okay, can anybody see my screen yet?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I've been living in Norton for 45 years. I'm retired. I started my professional career as a civil engineer in Boston, working with FEMA on the first flood insurance studies. After 25 years, I ended up with the National Weather Service in Norton, and I just retired a month and a half ago. Mark asked me to look at this, so I said, okay, let me look at the whole thing. The first slide I'm looking at is a chronology of the lower Canoe River flood insurance mapping by FEMA from Bay Road up to Route 123. On your right here is a 1978 study done in 77 by Anderson Nichols in Boston. You'll find this on the internet. I had a copy of this along with a lot of other studies that were done back in the 70s. I was cleaning stuff out as I was retiring. I decided to keep this one. But if you look on the lower left here, 78 study, the Winneconnet 100-year elevation was 66.4 in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the pond. I have the update years, 1987, 2009, and 2015. There were no updates to the hydrology or the hydraulics from 78, but there was an update with the mapping and the datum change, 87, 2009, and 2015. So if you notice, there's a 7-foot increase in the 100-year elevation from 1978 study to the 87 study at Bay Road, Winneconnet, which goes all the way back at that elevation of 73.4. So what I did is when I looked at this study in 87, it says for Winneconnet Pond, the water surface elevations for floods of the selected recurrence intervals, that's 10, 50, 100, and 500-year floods, was calculated based on a reservoir analysis of Lake Sebastian and Ton. What I found out is Lake Sebastian rose 7 feet in the 1968 flood, which they called the 100-year flood, to almost elevation 66 down there. So it was a 7-foot rise. I could not find any other information other than this. I tried to go to CDM and get the study in 87, but they couldn't find it. But the 7-foot rise there is similar to the 7-foot rise we have between the 78 study and the 87 study, from 66 to 73.4. So they're saying that there's a connection, hydraulic connection between Sebacia and Wading. I think what they meant was a hydrologic connection, because there's no hydraulic connection. There's Snake River, the Hockomock Swamp area downstream with Bay Road. So there's a hydraulic connection which is used in the flood insurance studies to date, right up till now, and I'll go over those. This graph, when Mark came to me, I said, Mark, what you gotta do is you gotta get a profile of Bay Road, because the flood insurance study, the way it says today, almost 4 football fields long in length of water going over that road in the 100-year flood. So you gotta get me a survey of that road, plus other survey, and talk to some people there for the 55, 68, 98, 2005, and 2010 floods. See how high it went over the road. So Mark did that, he got the survey, and I kind of went to looking at the hydrology and hydraulics. So one area of concern here is the Bay Road culvert, because I could not find any hydraulic studies done on this culvert, actually using the physical dimensions of it at all. I couldn't find it anywhere. It's not in any of the flood studies, because they started it there with a water surface elevation. And then the second thing is up here on Plain Street. There's a new culvert which can convey a lot more flow than the old one, the old triple culvert in there. So we had to look at that also as part of the study. So what I did is I went on a little bit of an investigation downstream, because I have to find out what's going on downstream to get myself a good starting water surface. Snake River begins at the Bay Road. It goes down to Lake Sebacia, and Mill River is downstream of Lake Sebacia. So when I looked at the latest H&H studies, I went to Mass DOT, and I got the I-495 study. And you can see here 66.7 is the NAVD 88 100-year elevation. And I went down to the new dam, because that's even a newer study in 2006 down in Sebacia. 100-year elevation 64.9. You can see here in the graph 64.9. Interesting thing is the half PMF peak, 67 feet. Half PMF is from the half PMP, problem maximum precip, and in one day that's 17 inches. The full PMP is 33.5 inches of rain for that watershed. So the half PMP is 17 inches, and that gets the elevation to 67 feet. The reason why I'm looking at all this downstream is because that's such a flat basin. From Sebacia spillway back to the Bay Road, there's no change in elevation, about 59.5, 60 feet. It's flat as anything. So I'm trying to figure out how we get a 7-foot rise in elevation of the 100-year flood from down that area. And the other thing is, you go to Toad Island Road and you walk into the woods, into the Hockomock Swamp. You go northeast, east, and then you come out about 4 miles later at the Hockomock Brook, and that elevation for the 100 years between 63 and 64 feet, which is the lower left. So investigating all these things, this is what I came up with. The new dam at the outlet of Sebacia has 64.9 NAVD 100-year. FEMA 100-year, right here at Field Street, is 65 feet. The Mass DOT 100-year 66.7 NAVD. This is how I started the HEC-RAS Corps of Engineer model. I started at 66.7 feet. And we got a bunch of cross sections through LIDAR and survey. And I'm trying to come up to how we got this elevation of 73.4 here, which is 7 feet over like the previous elevation, and it's much higher than these elevations that are controlling downstream. And then the FEMA 100-year up here in Hockomock is 64. So we're in the 60s everywhere with the 100-year. I know I'm going through this quickly, but I also realize I don't have much time to do this. So as we got LIDAR field survey, we updated the hydrology and updated the hydraulics. The hydrology on the upper right, they used the Wading River peak flows for 1926 to 1977. We're using log Pearson type 3. They took those flows, they transposed them to the Canoe River Basin based on the difference in drainage area to 0.72 power. So because none of the studies updated any of this stuff, I used the new FEMA methodology, the multiple Grubbs-Beck statistical analysis, and I used the 1926 to 2019 to come up with a flow. And the flow is bigger, which it should be, because there is some climate change issues with more rainfall falling. We also, in the lower middle here, we had survey done on the bridge in the opening at Bay Road. And then we also looked at the new culvert here on Plain Street, a little bit of drawing in. That's the new culvert, how much, I did that kind of quick, but that's the new culvert as far as the conveyance. The old 3-barreled chamber really you couldn't put too much in there. And if you looked at the flood study, you couldn't see how this thing was really working because you started with this 100-year elevation of 73.5, so this thing was always submerged. But if you take it to the 66, you can look at how this culvert system would have worked, and it's not good at all, the old culverts. You would have been over top on the road in 100 year. But now we've opened this thing up, so we got a bridge there, and it can convey a lot more water. So one of the reasons why I'm mentioning this is because anything upstream of Plain Street with the old bridge, you could have some flooding issues further up on Leonard, like in 2005, because this Plain Street was a real bottleneck also. So what I'm showing you here is the flood profile developed for the HECRAS model from I-495 up to almost 123 here on the right. And I used the 66.7 to start this at the 495 bridge 100 year. And we put cross sections in it, and we put the structures in, and ran the new hydrology based on FEMA's flood studies from the old hydrology, put the new hydrology. And I didn't go over this, but this 200 is the new number, 871. The old numbers, which I skipped, were 815. That was the old 100-year number. Those numbers were even used in the Plain Street Bridge, but none of the hydrology has ever been updated. So I figured I'd update it to get some more realistic flows in here. The red line on the bottom is no detailed FEMA hydraulic model was done from Bay Road downstream to the Hockomock swamp into Snake River down to 495. This line right here, that's the 100-year current line that's been there since '87, which is the legal line, which everybody has used because that's the FEMA line. That's the one that has to be used. But that's where it is. It's overtopping Bay Road. It's overtopping Plain Street. And when we did the hydraulics and the hydrology based on the new configuration here, we're coming up with a lower number. Very similar to the 78 study. So this map has a lot of information on it. But basically what I'm trying to do is I'm showing you the HECRAS profile of Bay Road. Over here on the left is I-495. Way up to the right is Chateau, but it's off the map. And I'm showing these storms, 55, 68, 98, 2005, 2010. They're the largest storms in the area in the modern time. They're the closest to the 100-year. If you look at this flows transposed here on the left, these are the flows that were transposed from the Wading River annual peaks with drainage area to a power, converted to what the Canoe River would have for flows, according to the FEMA flood study in '78, which all these other flood studies have been based on. So I just updated it. But what we did is we used 871 for the 100-year. And the interesting thing is Canoe River had a gauge there. In 2010, they measured 800. It's close, but I mean, this other value is taken from another basin, the Wading River Basin next door. So, but what I wanted to show you here is the blue line is where the HECRAS model comes, starting down at 66.7 down at I-495. This is how high it comes, up to about 69 feet. And I'm showing this level, this is what it comes up to using the 871 100-year flood hydrology in the HECRAS model. I also went back and looked at 1998 because we are hearing that was a higher flood, and I'll show you why it was in a minute. But when we run that level, starting at 69 elevation down there at the bridge in 495, we come up and we overtop the road a little bit for a very small area. Okay, now, possible 1998 level. Now the blue line up here again, this is the FEMA 100-year elevation 73.4, and it's basically saying all these floods, especially 2010, 1968, they are 3.4, 4.4, 3 feet over 3 feet over the road, and you're talking over 1,000 feet. There's a substantial amount of water on the road. I can't find anybody to tell me that ever happened. I can't see anything in the flood insurance study that says Bay Road was a problem for flooding in the FEMA flood insurance studies. So I'm showing you the HEC-RAS model with these lower numbers using the Q100 today of 871 based on the FEMA methodology to get a flow here. So I wanted to tell you about the 98 flood because that was a unique flood that happened in June, and I call it the Great Flood of 1998 for the Canoe River. The basin here, we had nearly 10 inches of water, and I've kept a co-op site in Norton for 45 years, and I reanalyzed the data of that rainfall because I remember when that happened, that was a hell of a lot of rain. And we got 7.61 inches in 24 hours, but it really fell in a much shorter time than that. So if we look at the TP40 Atlas for 98, when the TP40 Atlas was in vogue for this river, 1998 return period, the rainfall was all over the 100-year event. But if we look at the current Atlas, only the 6-hour and 12-hour rainfalls were near the 100-year event. The wading river that this is compared to is just to the west or left of this drawing, so they didn't get the big-time rain. So you know where you're going to transpose the flows that fell on the Canoe River from the wading in that type of event, because this was a real tight gradient event, and it basically centered itself on the Canoe River. So I'm saying that was a greater than 100-year event, and I'll tell you why. 7.66 inches of rain, 6-1, in less than 24 hours. About the time when maximum flow got down to Winneconnet, which was probably 24 to 40 hours later, we got another 2.4 inches of rain. So this is from data in the basin. I live in the east part of Norton, but I'm in the basin. So I get nearly 10 inches of rain in a little over 2 days. So it was quite an event. We understood from one of the presentations that there was a little bit of flow over the road in that event. So I reran the river system based on what I thought fell in the 1998 event. I went to the Taunton Flood District's meeting notes, and they're saying that anything north of Field Street to the border of Norton, that whole Hockomock area, that is at or below 69 feet, there's an issue with it. And I couldn't talk to anybody to find out what the issue was, but it must be flooding. Anyway, I started the run down on I-495 at 69 feet. And sure enough, it came up through Bay Road, and it came up to the parking lot on, I used to call it Ann's Place, Chateau. The parking lot had water on it. And Plain Street with the hydraulics, it's running much better than it would have with the old hydraulic system and the bridge system. So when we go up to Plain Street, if we look at the 100-year 871 CFS with this hydraulic configuration of the new roadway, this is what it does. It keeps it much of it in under the bridge, under the low point of the bridge. The old 73.4, I don't care what you had in there for a bridge, you're going to be overtopping it. And that's what the flood insurance study says, and that's legally by law the 100-year floodplain. And if you go up further, closer to 123, this is section Z1. Maybe you have this on a map, Mark, but this one here is changing the 100-year floodplain from 73.4 to about 70 feet NAVD, which changes laterally 500 feet of floodplain in that area. This is a major change in not only elevation, but also in the lateral extent. Oh, Mark, you want to talk about the map?
Yes, so this map shows the red line would be the approximate new flood zone line for the 100-year based on elevation 70 versus the cyan line, which is the currently mapped flood zone of 74. And then on as far as the numbers, we anticipate there's almost 300 acres of land affected by this. And it would partially touch approximately 150 properties. There may only be a certain amount that would be affected specifically by the change, but just touching where that flood zone changes is up to about 150 properties.
Okay,
Go to the next one.
so we'll go over the conclusions. The model you looked at has updated hydrology based on the earlier FEMA flood insurance studies up to 2019 with the peak flows. I used the Corps of Engineers HEC 2 model and retrieved that and converted it to HEC-RAS to make sure I had a good existing model and I had the flood insurance study correct with that. Then we used a new HEC-RAS model because we had to extend the downstream down to the Snake River, down to 495 and maybe even further down. But it has a new improved hydraulics at Plain Street, and it has the hydraulic modeling of Bay Road, which I haven't been able to find anywhere in any of the studies, or even outside of the studies. And I reviewed all the downstream hydraulic controls of the Snake River. And of course, we have this new profile. The result is I have more water in the system than any of the other flood studies, and I have a lower floodplain by 3 to 3.4 feet for the 100-year. So this is what, if we were to go in front of FEMA, this is something, it's a long process. So the letter of map revision and the conditional letter of map process and MT2 application, that would have to go in front of them to show them the changes of the floodplains, the floodways, and all the elevations. And then they have this PMR physical map revision, which we can get into that later. The one thing I didn't include is I-495 and Field Street hydraulics in the model. Kind of looked at the flatness of it, and I can't see how I'm going to get 7 feet, or how I'm going to fill that hot marsh swamp up 7 feet more to get it up to 73.4. So the MT2, basically, it's a long process with FEMA. A technical review of the H&H is required. The firm and FIS has to be updated. The special flood hazard areas would change. It'd be a change in, I guess, requiring mandatory flood insurance, but anybody could still keep their flood insurance, and the maps would change. What are the impacts? Well, the new hydraulic structures, the bridge we talked about up at Plain Street, the starting water surface elevation of 73.4. I can't see how that hydraulically was ever put there because we looked at the PMP, which is a 17-inch rainfall event. And if I use that starting water surface elevation of 67.4 down at Sebacia, I'd never come up with 73 up at Winneconnet because it's hydraulically that opening is big enough, and because it's a flat profile going through that whole system.
All right.
So if I was to submit something, there's an awful lot of information that still has to be done with floodplains and floodways, the way FEMA would like to look at it to submit this so it would even have a chance of being accepted. But I have my certified floodplain manager's certificate I've had for 12 years. And the reason why I'm looking at this is FEMA is very happy to change mapping if they think something is wrong. No one's ever looked at this. No one's ever complained about it. I had Mark come up to me, so I said, oh, okay, I'll look at it. Because he was telling me you don't think the water could be that high. So this is not something FEMA would say we're not going to look at because they want better mapping. They want to have better mapping. If we can find a way with better technical information to give them better mapping, this is a start for it. That's all I did. This is a start for changing of mapping. The town of Norton does not have to do anything different with the FEMA regulations that's there now. This could take, I don't know, it could take 6 months to 2 years to change, if it gets changed at all. So just showing you some information.
Well, as I mentioned at the presentation at the selectmen's meeting, this really is not something that can change our process until the map changes. So I'm assuming, you're mentioning that it's a big package, but I'm assuming if you put this amount of information in front of them to show that there appears to have been a typo in the transcription between 78 and 87, that they will look at it and potentially fill in the missing pieces in order to make the revision.
Yeah, I don't think it was a typo. Sebacia Lake rose 7 feet, so they rose this one 7 feet too, the 100-year flood.
So they just assumed there was an equal hydrologic connection. Or,
Yeah, that's the, back then the flood insurance studies were very limited because the field was limited. You didn't have the big modeling, and you just didn't have a lot of the tools you have today. So that's the only thing I could find. I can't find any study or anything done or any modeling.
anybody else have anything to add?
I came in late, and can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Just Dan. This is Dan Pearson's.
Yeah, I was struggling to get into the meeting, so I apologize for being late to it. I did come in late, but I'm not sure what this is about the spelling error.
Well, there was a sudden change in the FEMA flood elevation from the revision from 1978 to 1987, without clear identification as to why that 7 feet was in there. But as Ed points out, there apparently was a 7-foot rise on Stabatia, which doesn't necessarily directly affect all of the areas upstream, and he's making.
I see. So this study was, this study was done by FEMA. These the 78 and the 87 studies.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they were done by FEMA's consultants in Boston for FEMA. Yep.
All right. If there, so you're not suggesting that the town take this up, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
We went to the selectmen board with the essential presentation, and they asked that we should go to you guys, just give the presentation, but the next step would be to submit to FEMA. And just a note, we just did submit an intent for their phased roadway, and project, it's clear we're using the older data, not looking for any specific, relief with respect to this FEMA information. Everything is designed per the mapped FEMA, the currently mapped FEMA, so we're not expecting this to go through anytime soon, and we're using it as a means of relief for what we filed. So everything that you see coming forward in the near future will still have the original FEMA mapped elevations.
Okay. So unless there are further comments on this, we can consider looking forward to the information coming from FEMA revised.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so our next item on the agenda is request for determination of applicability for Deborah Poplowski of 10 Plain Street. And it's summarized as the proposed project is to remove 18 trees within 100 foot of wetlands. Do we have someone online who can give us a summary of the project? And Jennifer, we see, I guess it's taking a little time to load.
I can't.
We just see your list.
Okay, then we'll stop and start it again. It seems to want you to do it twice, so here we are. And Deborah is on the call, I believe, and so she'll just present her project to you.
Hi, good evening. This is Debbie and John Poplowski from 10 Plain Street. And we are here tonight to get approval to have pine trees removed from our property, 18 in fact. Most of them are, well, all of them are old, but many have died. We've actually lost a couple in the last 6 to 8 months. The latest being just a week and a half ago, where it went right through our roof. So,
All right, just 1 second. So, Jennifer, is there any way you can enlarge that a little?
I can enlarge it. I can't turn it sideways though.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah. So.
So up here is Plain Street, and this is Pine Street.
And I see. Let's see. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
It's
9.
not my number. I just drew X's in there. It's in that area, and I have some photos to show. I'm not sure if Deborah has anything else she wants to add before we look at the photos.
no, I don't think so. Thanks.
So these look. Well, there are 2 groups adjacent to the street, and then there's one group, one couple that are adjacent. It's a creek back there. Is that right? A river.
Well, Rumford River. It's far back. It would be the outer riparian, if anything. Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing this so you can see photos. I think that's going to help you more. But it looks like I'm going to have to do it twice. So bear with me a second.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do it again.
Yep. Yeah, I just have to wait for it to be ready to do it twice. All right, let me see it, Dan.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, thanks. So she has some large trees back here. So the river is behind all of these trees. And you can see how large they are compared to the house. The roof is over here. And then these are at the front of the property on Plain Street. Okay.
So yes, these trees are kind of intimidatingly tall. I assume a professional a tree person will be required, because with my chainsaw I wouldn't go near one of those.
You and I.
Yes, we have Walnut Tree Service out of Stoughton that has come by and assured us that take care of them. They will chip them up right on the premises and clear everything away. They're insured. We have a certificate of insurance.
All right, so any questions from members of the commission about this project? Any questions from members of the audience? Yeah, let's see if I can find the, see if there are any hands up.
And so just to remind people, if they have a question, to roll the mouse down to the bottom of the screen so the toolbar shows up where you can see participants. You can click on that. You should see everyone's name who's on the call, and there should be a blue hand there that you can press or raise hand if you have a question.
All right, so seeing no hands, we can consider closing this. This looks, and we have all the information we need, I assume, to close
Correct.
this. And we have been doing electronic presentations now for quite some time. So traditionally, up to now, we've been continuing just to be sure there are no further questions that come in. But we are considering discontinuing that practice so that we can close this hearing tonight. So if we're ready to do that, we can consider a motion.
Make the motion, we close determination number 1099.
All right, we have a motion made by Dan Doyle.
I'll second.
Seconded by Gene. So we're going to do a voice vote. All those in favor, Dan, what is your vote?
Aye.
And we have a Dan Pearson voted aye, and Gene,
Aye.
you are, and Lisa, I think you don't have to recuse from this one, is that right?
That's right. Aye.
All right, so we're closed. This seems fairly straightforward back in our regular meetings, so we can consider a motion to do a -3, and by way of explanation, that means no notice of intent is required, and that means the project goes forward according to plan. So looking for a motion for that?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to make a -3 determination to DET 1099.
Motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by
Second.
Dan Doyle. Roll call, Dan Doyle.
Aye.
Gene?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
And I'm assuming Dan Pearson will say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, so thank you guys, and we're going to move on to our next item, which
Thank you
is
so much.
very good. So it looks like we don't have a file number for notice of intent for Hannah Norwood on 3 Mary Jo Road, but the project involves construction of a 2-story single-family home, grading and utilities within 100 foot of wetlands, and a rare species habitat. But I assume we have a representative of the applicant, if you can just give us a summary of the project. And Jennifer, once again, I guess you're going to do the 2 clicks.
Yep. Almost there.
Good evening, my name is Arsen Hambart-Zumian. I'm with Nestra Engineering, representing Hannah Norwood for 3 Mary Jo Road, which is Lot 4. She had previously obtained a NOI approval, order of conditions. However, since that point it has expired, so we have filed a new one. The initial one was filed and the permit was in hand, the erosion control was put in, the well was put in. Her father owns the lot next door, so I think at the same time as he was constructing it, they had done a lot of the work, the site work for this project, specifically the erosion control, the well, gravel base for the driveway, and the foundations even excavated that you'll see in some of the photographs of the existing conditions. Since it was expired, we went and reflagged and confirmed the flagging, found most of the remnants, reflagged the wetland line, made a few changes to the original plan, which I believe might have been a change in the zoning requirements, which was the split rail fence. We added the split rail fence on the inside or the upland side of the 25 foot no disturb zone. But other than that, the design has stayed the same. The house shape has changed slightly, as the original notice of intent just had a box there. And this house shape is based on the actual architectural drawings of the structure. And I think that's really it. I'd be happy to answer questions. There's a septic system that will go in. It'll be in the front of the house, outside of the buffer zone. The tank will be just inside the buffer zone, right there. Thank you very much. And then there's a deck or a front porch that's halfway in the buffer zone, half outside. And then on the left side, there'll be some stone boulders for a retaining area, with the driveway going underneath the building, underneath the dwelling for a garage under. And that's it.
So the contours it looks like a fairly gentle slope to the site. Kind of like maybe 6 feet, is that, or?
The back will be fairly flat. The front is elevated due to the septic system and the material that needs to be brought in. I believe the front's at elevation 110, but the back of the site is 103.5 and gradually sloping away.
All right.
Just the only thing to note is that This is Rare Species Habitat, and Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program has determined where the limit of work would be. So this is the limit of work along this line here, which makes that the no disturbance zone. So I sent you some revisions today. So remove this part. 25 foot isn't the set parameter anyway. That's not what our policy says. The no disturbance zone would be located here with the post and rail fence, and we give you the markers. That's a buffer zone, do not disturb.
That's actually in place, and with the erosion control. There's two markers, I believe, in place, a post and a sign. Is that?
There are posts. Yep, it's not going to be the same sign, so it needs to be consistent throughout all the projects in Norton, as I mentioned to you in the email. But that would be the only change needed on the plan. But you do not have a wetland file number yet from DEP, and we cannot close the public hearing until we have the letter from Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. I do have some photos if you want to see for members, just to.
And while those are being posted,
To take a minute.
any other questions about the project from members of the commission? And if not, I'm going to look for hands up.
Oh, I just had a quick question, Julian.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the silt fence is already there, was installed. What's the integrity of that silt fence, and how old is it?
I just want to see if it's here.
Okay.
It's not bad. The fence
Okay.
is okay. Yep.
Okay.
So I'll just go back to the beginning here. So this is as you come in the driveway from the road. You can see it's already cleared. And I think this is where the foundation will go, and up here is the septic system. This is full of Japanese knotweed. The sediment control in the front probably needs to be redone. And that is the existing well with the existing fence. And this is the post with an old marker, but it's not consistent with the markers that we give out. And it's not a post and rail fence.
Well, sorry, quick question. Will the post and rail fence go along the erosion control line?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
What about where it turns and is outside of the buffer zone? Would it stop at the 100-foot buffer zone? Or can it stop there?
Let me see if I can pull that plan up again for you. What's this plan? You mean down here near the well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That depends on what Natural Heritage says. But for our purposes, yes, unless Natural Heritage says it goes the whole length.
Okay.
All right, if there are no further questions or comments, we can consider a motion to continue. And our next meeting is the 14th of September. Is that a reasonable time? I guess it would, because the only thing we're waiting for is feedback from both a number and Natural Heritage. Is that right?
And just a revised plan based on what we talked about today in the email that I sent.
So presumably the revised plan should not be a problem with that time frame?
No problem.
All right. So we can
So I'll make
say again?
motion to. Oh, I was going to make a motion to continue the public hearing for 3 Miracle Road.
Lisa makes a motion and seconded by Dan Doyle. Roll call, Dan Doyle.
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
And Lisa, I'm assuming an aye.
Aye.
And then, not sure if Dan Pearson, he might have been lost. But I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. All right. Next time, a discrete list of things to address. The revised plan, the number, and the material from Natural Heritage.
Very good. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Too late for me to vote aye. I was thrown out of the meeting once again.
We'll throw in a fifth eye for you. All right, so our next item is also a notice of intent that appears not to have a number from DP yet, but it's concerning Norton Water Sewer Department for 0 King Philip Road, proposed the replacement of 2 wells, a 48-hour pumping test, and connection to existing infrastructure within 200 foot of Canoe River and bordering land subject to flooding. And we have a representative.
We do.
Okay, if you can just state your name and give us a description of the project.
Sure, thank you. My name is Kevin McKinnon from Weston and Sampson. I'm the hydrogeologist on the project, and I'm representing the Norton Water and Sewer Department on this project. So the purpose of the project is generally to replace 2 existing production wells for the water department, wells 5 and 6.
Hang on, just one second. So you're trying again, is that right? We're trying to get the plan.
Here we are.
Sure, no problem.
All right, I think we may be there.
Yeah, Kevin, if you explain where you are, then I can zoom in as you're describing the project.
Sure, I've been
where
watching.
You are, then the resource areas, and then I can zoom into each area.
All right, right on. So, as I said, the purpose of the project is to replace 2 wells. There's wells 5 and well 6. And to orient you on this particular map, north is really to the right of the page. South, where the Canoe River is to the bottom of the page. Sorry, east is where the Canoe River is to the bottom of the page. And then moving away from the Canoe River from the bottom of the page to the top of the page, we have the wetland boundary delineated in blue, the upper bank in pink, or annual high water, I should say, and the 100-foot buffer in yellow, and the 100-year floodplain in orange, and then the 200-foot riverfront area in green. And our work will primarily be conducted between the 100-year floodplain in orange and the 200-foot riverfront area in green. So you can see.
I'm sorry, can you explain where this is?
Sure. It's in the eastern part of town, adjacent to the Canoe River, between the Canoe River and 495, just north of Winneconnet Pond.
What street is it?
So up here, this road will take you to Plain Street. This property over here is roughly the town forest.
Okay.
And then this is the river with the new bridge.
Okay, so is this an existing access road?
Correct.
Okay, just had to figure out where we were while.
Yeah.
Yes, an existing gravel access road. So what we've done so far is to complete a test well drilling project to identify locations for where these new replacement wells will go. You can see on the map the existing wells. Wells 5 is to the right-hand side. You see the existing well building. The well is inside that pump house. And well 6 on the left-hand side of the page there, inside that existing building. Our test well drilling project identified 2 locations for the replacement of these 2 wells. And so I'll kind of describe that work. Obviously, there's the drilling of the wells themselves. Subsequent to the drilling of the wells, we will be developing the screens, meaning removing some of the fine material in and around the screen to maximize the transmissivity of the aquifer and the efficiency of the wells themselves. And then we'll be testing those wells by running a 48-hour pumping test to verify the efficiency of the well and to grab water quality samples so we can ensure that we are collecting or putting in clean drinking water into the existing system. So once the wells are drilled, developed, and tested, the new wells will be piped into the existing distribution system. So that will include a pitless adapter on the top of the casing, which will channel water subsurface away from the well into an 8-inch pipe that will tee into the existing water main that runs along the road there. Away from, between the new well and the existing distribution system will be a small, I think it's a 13 by 7 vault that will be installed to, basically it's for where we're going to put our meter, so we can monitor flow rates and also be able to take samples in the vault. So, as I said, the work will include drilling the wells and connecting the wells to the existing system. The reason why we're here is because a lot of this work happens within your jurisdiction, and as I said, it happens between the 100-year floodplain and the 200-foot riverfront area. And so the impact areas that have been identified as a result of this project are both temporary and permanent. The temporary impact will include well casing that reaches the surface, a 36-inch well casing. There's 2 of them. And then the vault, as I mentioned, there'll be a temporary impact from installing that vault, and then a permanent impact from just the hatch at the surface, 4x4 hatch on each of those 2 vaults. And then there'll be some, a little bit of impact from the piping as we install that piping. That's a temporary impact. So all in all, the temporary impact is about 1,372 square feet. But the permanent impact is really just the well casings at the surface and the vault hatch, which is 48 square feet total within this area. So since the well casing, both the well casing and the vault hatch take up about approximately 71 cubic feet of floodplain, we will be mitigating that small impact in the area of the proposed discharge for the testing of these wells. And that discharge location is located north of well 5, north of the well 5 pump house, in a little square area that we might be able to point out just to the right, Jennifer. Nope, keep going. A little bit further, it's lined by hay bales.
Oh, there.
Yep. So,
Okay.
Once we're done with the pumping tests, we will be, that's a 12 by 12 area that we will basically fill with a half a foot of material there to mitigate that floodplain impact for compensatory storage.
So not fill, remove.
We'll remove, sorry. Yeah, I misspoke. And then additionally will be...
Not hay bale, straw either, right?
I'm sorry?
Not hay bales, straw.
Straw, correct.
Okay, and then just one more thing. When you're saying it's between the floodplain and the riverfront area, that's describing this section. I don't think that's where you are. So you're between the floodplain and the BVW.
And the wetland, yep.
Okay, within the floodplain, but also within riverfront area.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Right. I guess I meant to say the 2 resources that we are within are the 200-foot riverfront area and the 100-year floodplain.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. So in addition to the compensatory storage, we'll be revegetating in a number of areas wherever we have an excavation, but also in some additional areas along the top of bank where we will identify during a site walk of any areas of need that need some additional reseeding as part of this project. So, in the end, it's a very small permanent impact to the area, the huge benefit to the town to increase the yield of these 2 sources that have diminished by over 50%. Each of these wells have lost over 50% of their capacity. And with the new treatment plant, obviously we need the water to feed into the treatment plant get that clean water to the town. So, you know, in the end, we don't feel there's any, you know, permanent negative impacts as a result of this project. And so, happy to answer any additional questions about the project. And I understand we don't have a DEP number quite yet, so we can't close out tonight, but, you know, we can at least answer all the questions that might come up tonight.
All right, any further questions or comments from members of the commission or our director?
Yeah, so can you describe, I mean, you keep mentioning that you're going to drill the well, but can you describe what machinery, what the process is? I'm also really curious about this 48-hour pump test. Where's all that water going? How is it, how are you going to control that water so it doesn't cause erosion? Give us a little detail on the means and methods of how you're actually going to construct this, please.
Sure. The wells are quite large in size. So the existing well 5 is 78 feet deep. We're replacing it with a 70-foot deep well. But it is a 36 by 24 inch well. And the drilling rig that will construct this thing is called the cable tool rig. As you can imagine, it's constructed of, it has a large derrick that will rise and try to basically use a hammer to push down casing, and we'll use a sand pump to remove the material from within that casing. And when a well is this large and this deep, we need to reduce skin friction as we construct the well. So we'll start off with a 54-inch casing. And that value has been included in the temporary impact analysis.
So you're hammering, when you're hammering down, you're pushing the material out of the way, is that coming up to the surface and you're removing that off site?
That's correct.
Okay.
So that 54-inch casing we push down to about 10, 11 feet. And then inside of that, we'll put in a 48-inch casing and push that down to approximately 30 feet. And then we put in a 36-inch casing and push that down to the depth of our well, which would, in this case, would be 70 feet. And then we put our 24-inch casing and screen inside of all of that. And then we remove, many of these casings are temporary. The 54-inch casing is temporary, the 48-inch casing is temporary. And the 36-inch casing will be bumped up to expose the screen at the bottom of the well. Once we fill that 24 and 36-inch annulus with gravel pack in the middle. So that's generally the way these things will be constructed, because we'll be looking at the material as we advance this well and trying to tweak the design of the well as we go, and selecting the correct screen slot size for the screen of the well. And then, as I mentioned, there'll be a development process where for approximately 4 hours per foot of screen. So if we had a 10-foot screen for about 40 hours, we would be surging and pumping on this well, discharging to a local area water that is basically has fine sands in it, and it will be dumped adjacent to the well, stockpiled for removal at a later date once we finish the construction of the well. And then once the well is developed, we'll run that. It's a DEP requirement that we run a 48-hour pumping test to test the well and to grab water quality samples at the conclusion of the 48-hour pumping test. So that water will be discharged in that little area that I identified earlier, that 12 by 12 square, will be used for both energy dissipation, and it's to collect any material that comes out of the pipe here from the water. But as I mentioned, we'll be spending a lot of time developing this well. So by the time I run a pumping test, I'm not producing any silt, sand, or clay. This is just plain clean water coming out of this pipe and into that energy dissipation area.
Sorry, where's that energy dissipation area?
Right there.
Oh, I thought that was the compensatory storage for the flood zone impacts.
It will be afterwards.
It'll be afterwards, okay.
Yeah.
So you're missing a bunch of labels on that. So first of all, it's just showing up as a square. I have no idea what it is. So you probably want to label it as a, temporary use. And then as a permanent compensatory storage, and we're going to want to see the grading so that it's a foot by foot incremental compensation for impacts in the flood zone.
Sure.
And is that 12 by 12 foot area sized to hold all of that water that you're pumping out of there?
Yes. I mean, obviously, we're not going to store, all that water there. It will run over and dissipate into the wetland associated with the Canoe rivers.
Well, what measures are you going to take to make sure that's visibly clear of suspended solids in TSS?
Visual observation. We can stop it if need be, but at this point in time, this well, I won't start the pumping test unless it's visually clear in the first place.
Right. So what backup plans are you going to have if you find that 12 by 12 area is overflowing?
We can put on what we call a dirt bag at the end of the discharge pipe to collect any potential silts or fine material that might be discharging from the well.
Okay.
All right, any further questions from the commission?
Yep, hold on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I have several after you, Jennifer. Go ahead.
okay. It might only just be one more for the moment, but the locations for the new well, are those in already cleared areas? Because there are a number along the side of the road where there are some spots that have already been cleared. And when I did the inspection, it looks like this is one little patch of forested area and fill that needs to be removed.
Yeah, the replacement wells we put in places where, actually, it might make sense to
That's
point
right
them
here.
out. You see that one where it says new 36-inch well? You're pointing to the vault, not the well. It's a little bit to the left. There you go. There's a test well there currently, so we had to get a drilling rig in there. It's basically adjacent to the road. You can see the outline of the road right there. So yeah, it's already cleared. The other location over near well 6 is, just, I think it's only about 50 or so feet away from the existing well 6, between the building and the gravel road, but that's all open area, yes.
Okay, correctly, because there's no canopy on the plan.
I didn't quite get that question. What was the question?
Just that it's difficult to confirm that because there's no canopy on the plan. There's no tree line on the plan for us to see
I see. All right.
within a cleared area already. And just to make sure we have the quantities correct, right? You're counting what you're using for sediment control as your alteration amount for temporary, correct?
Would you repeat that question, please?
You should be counting where your sediment control is, if this is the sediment control, as your temporary alteration.
I don't think that's sediment control. I think that's the limit of work.
That's the limit of work. Yeah.
Okay, so, but you're counting the limit of work is your alteration amounts.
Definitely not if we're saying it's 1372 square feet.
Well, if you're in the floodplain, your limit of work, the whole area that you have is your temporary disturbance. Your permanent might only be the top of this casing, as you said, and then the vault. That would be your permanent.
So you would like us to report the entire work area as the temporary impact area?
Well, that would be more accurate.
I'm not familiar with that, but okay.
Yeah. And if there's, I mean, does it require sediment control all in these places, or can you tighten that up to where you're actually working?
I think it would make sense to have sediment control that entire length, just in case there's any runoff from when we're bringing materials up from the well and placing it in that stockpiled areas. There will be water discharging out of there. I think better safe than sorry.
And so you'll have multiple rings around the soil that you're trying to de-water?
I don't understand your question.
If you're taking soil out of here in this well, where are you putting it? Over here? Over here? Where are you putting it?
Probably to the east, I guess it would be.
So closest to the wetland?
Yes.
Okay. And so you put a pile here and it starts to have silty water come out of the pile. You wouldn't have an additional row of sediment control here to make sure it doesn't get past this point? This is your last line of defense.
If you're requesting that, we can certainly add it.
Okay. Lisa, you go ahead with your questions. I think I'm good for the moment.
Okay, I'm going to ask you first to start by labeling the Canoe River on the plan. Second
Off the
thing
map.
is, I'm sorry?
It's off the map.
You're showing mean annual high water. Could you please put the Canoe River on there? We don't know what it's mean annual high water of the Canoe River. So could you please put Canoe River on there? Okay, the next question is, you've provided detail in the narrative that's called the discharge detail. And then you provide a detail on the plan set that's a little different. Looks like it's supposed to be the same thing. So, could you just explain the difference between those two things?
I'd have to see what you're talking about. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you can have that answer for next time. So, the very last page of your narrative, Appendix H, discharge dissipation, has a discharge detail. That differs from the detail you're showing on the detail sheet. So if you could tell us what the difference is the next hearing. The next question I have is the sediment control. How come it doesn't wrap around the back side of those wells, or the north side of those wells, between the physical work and the resource area? It seems to stop at the fence, which is not even going to be there at that moment.
So what are you requesting?
I'm asking you why the silt fence doesn't go behind the well. If the work is going to be performed there, why that silt fence should be between the disturbance and the resource area. So why stop at the edge of the well?
Well, is the well
It's a
building, it's a concrete block building or other?
Correct.
Are you talking about right here, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a building. Okay.
So are they going to excavate for it?
No, it's already there.
That's the existing well.
Already there. Well, that's helpful. Okay.
Yep. So this one's already here, number 5.
Okay.
And then this is the new well.
Okay. All right. I got you.
I guess it's piped this way. Is that correct, Kevin?
Well, there will be power brought back from the new well to the existing building. That's what that line represents.
Yep. So from here,
Okay.
coming back this way. And
Okay.
then this one, well 6, this is an existing building.
Yes.
And this
I
is
get you. That's the new one.
This is the new well. And so it goes from the new well into the building. Is that correct? And then to this, looks like a hydrant kind of thing. Is that
That's the
correct?
same thing where there's power that goes from the new well to the existing well,
Okay,
right?
Oh,
And
yeah, okay, electrical conduit, I see it.
electrical conduit, yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to label the temporary use of that area, and then you're also going to show us some grades so the contractor can build that compensatory storage area. So the vault location, oh no, that wasn't one of my questions, sorry. Okay, so we want to put a note to the effect that all disturbed areas will be loamed and seeded. Either condition that or add it to the plan. Okay, I think the last question I had has to do with the 1.5 inch Schedule 80 PVC pipe, the sump pump discharge. So my question is, how often will that operate? If you need velocity dissipation in those locations, if you anticipate any erosion, and exactly what that is.
so the purpose of that is, as I mentioned, there'll be a vault in between the new well and the existing. So the vault is subsurface. So in the event water were to get into the hatch, so it would basically have to be kind of a 100-year flood event where we might get water inside the vault. It's a way to get water out of the vault. So it probably will never be used.
Okay, do you typically, I mean, I know it's only 1.5 inches, but do you typically have any, or the need for any velocity dissipation?
No, we do not.
Kevin, is there already the sump pump discharge from each of the wells here now? Because there's something discharging.
To be honest, I don't know. That was not something I looked at when I was out there.
Yeah. I think there might be something there already on the wells.
Oftentimes there's a basement in each of those well houses, so you can access the casing and the piping down below. So there may be a sump pump down there in the event that water gets in there.
Okay, those are my questions, that's it.
All right, so I assume you wrote down that list of items to be added to the plan, and then I think we need to get a number, which should occur without a problem, for the next meeting. And our next meeting is, I believe, the 14th. Yes, September 14th. Is that a reasonable time frame for you to have those revisions complete?
Absolutely.
Did you want to see a couple pictures real quick?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so here is that well, the existing well. And on the plan, it looks like this area is going to be cleared for the new. You said there was an existing well and then a new well and the vault.
I thought this was the test well to establish that that was a reasonable location.
That is a test well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems that all of the activity will occur in that space that's already cleared. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In that area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because for this one, the other well is, the existing well is across the street.
Okay, so this is the existing well. That's
Well,
the existing building.
Test well.
Yep.
This is the
Test
test
well.
well.
Okay, and so all of that activity is over here, not clearing the vegetation.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, just gonna look to see if there are hands up, but I suspect not. I see no hands. So we can consider a motion to continue this hearing until the 14th of September.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion to continue to the 14th of September.
Motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by?
I'll second.
Dan Doyle? Oh, wait, I think that was Gene, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so motion made and seconded. All those in favor, we're going to do a roll call. Dan Doyle?
Aye.
Gene?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Dan Pearson?
Aye.
And myself is an aye, so the motion carries. We'll see you on the 14th of September.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. So our next item up is discussion, request for amendment for DEP file 250-1054 for New England Power Company. And I think we've been discussing this previously, and I'm assuming it's Allison that will be presenting that. I saw her on the...
Good evening, Chairman. I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
You missed us, Allison, huh?
I just can't get away. I'll let Jen bring up the
Thanks.
request. Thank you.
I don't know why it makes me do it twice, but it does.
Might be time for a new laptop or computer or whatever you're working on.
I don't think it has anything to do with that.
I have the same issue. Same issue at work.
Can
Okay,
you see
I'll
it?
begin. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Good evening. This is Allison Lohman from BSC Group. We're all familiar with each other at this point. So I'm here again with another request for the New England Power Transmission Line project. As the construction crews have been mobilizing to the right-of-way, they've identified a couple locations along the line. Well, in Norton, they've identified like 3 locations where we have existing transmission line structures that are kind of at the corner of where the access point is for them to kind of take a hard left or right, depending on which way they're coming, to access the 327 and the 315 line structures. It's that right-of-way has 4 lines associated with it. So there's another 2 lines that are existing on the project, and some of them are creating encumbrance or hindrance to them being able to actually bring some of the larger equipment in. They're not able to safely make that turn without potentially, hitting one of the guy wires or the poles at these locations. So they've requested that we ask please for some more temporary construction matting in those wetland areas. The total would be approximately almost 6,000 square feet of additional matting for these requests. And overall for the project, we're requesting approximately 2%, less than a 2% increase in temporary construction matting. So based on the relatively minor nature of this request, we were hoping that it could be approved as a minor modification by the commission. I've updated our Wetlands Protection Act Form 3 with the new proposed temporary impacts to BVW, provided that to Jennifer for her use. And it's at 3 different locations. We've updated the EFI plans. It's basically on page 2.
This is the right one?
That's correct. So you see there's a structure 175, and the access route that we had originally proposed is, there's an existing pole there at the entrance. So in order to make that swing in with the larger equipment, they've requested that we add some matting there on the side of the access route in order for them to get in without any potential accidents. The second location is on page 4.
So is it also this 180? That's new too?
No, that's an existing.
Okay. So page 4. Okay.
So a similar situation, and that's at structure 189 and 183, where the existing access route is a hard right angle, and they're not able to make the swing with the larger equipment. So they've requested additional matting adjacent to the upland access route in order to get the equipment in. And the last location is page 11. and that's down near 202 and 209. Similar situation. The existing upland access route was too narrow with the constraints of the other transmission lines, so they requested additional matting next to the access route to make the swing in. So that's a summary of the requests at this time. I can take any questions or comments from the commission.
Allison did give us the revised notice of intent page, so because the order of conditions lists the specific quantity of BBW, we would have to amend it. But you could do an amended order. That's really the only change.
But we can vote on that tonight and just produce the paperwork,
Correct?
because it is obviously needed for safety issues, and it's temporary, so I certainly have no objection to it.
Yeah, I don't either. I just had a question, Allison. So does the construction arm of NRID usually opine on that stuff earlier in the process?
Yes, so how we typically do it, they have a separate group they're considered planners, and they go out with us in the field years usually while we're in the developing process of the project, and identify access and work setup. But it's typical. It's not unusual that when the actual guys who are doing the work and in the field, they do have sometimes some concerns or additional asks that do arise, and it's usually around safety concerns.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just thought maybe they did the process a little earlier. Okay.
I would appreciate that too if we could see all these potential issues in the beginning.
All right, any further comments, questions from anybody? So, I'm not sure exactly what the best process is. Do we vote on this now, or?
Let's see. It is an advertised public hearing, so you would close the hearing, and then you could vote for an amended order.
So this request for an amendment was a separate advertisement then?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, unless there are further questions, comments, or whatever, I think we can entertain a motion to close this request for amendment hearing for file number 250-1054.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing for DEP file number 250-1054.
Motion by Dan Doyle and seconded by?
Second, Pearson.
Dan Pearson. So roll call, all those in favor, starting with Dan Doyle.
Aye.
Gene?
Aye.
And we have Ron on. You can kind of raise your hand indicating yes, no. Okay, I think that was a yes. Is that right? Yes, all right, there you go. And then Lisa?
Aye.
And Dan Pearson.
Yes. Aye.
And I will throw in an eye on that. So thank you. And let's see.
So then always vote to amend the order, just noting the change in the alteration amount.
All right, we have the wording of a motion. If somebody wants to say so voted, so noted, or
Well, I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
all right. So the motion has been put forth to accept the amended areas of the temporary matting, and a second by?
I'll second.
Second by Ron. Again, roll call vote. Dan Doyle?
Aye.
And Gene?
Aye.
Ron? Well, Ron's still on.
Ron's muted.
Aye, Mr. Chairman.
Dan Pearson is votes an aye, and Lisa?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So we're all set. That was our electronic signature, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
You bet. Item on the agenda is notice of intent file number 1060 for Alice M. Dumanigo. really trust. 64 Elm Street, continued from the 10th of August. The proposed project is to repair and replace an existing septic system with associated grading utilities and tree removal within 100 foot of bordering vegetated wetland.
They've requested a continuance to September 14th so they can finish with the Board of Health.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue file 250-1060 to the September 14th meeting.
Motion made for continuation by Dan Pearson and seconded by
Second.
Gene. Roll call, Dan Doyle.
Aye.
Gene.
Aye.
Ron.
Aye.
And Dan Pearson.
Aye.
And Lisa.
Right?
All right, so moved. Next item is notice of intent, file number 250-1062 for Wheaton College.
Whoop, you skipped one for 250-1061.
Yes,
Rosenberg Center.
got it, yes.
Yep,
Never mind. See you guys in a bit.
it's okay. It'll take a second. They've requested a continuance to September 14th, also to speak with the Board of Health about their project.
And we can entertain such a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue to file 250-1061 to the September 14th meeting.
Motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by Dan Doyle. Roll call vote. Dan Doyle.
Aye.
Gene.
Aye.
Ron.
Aye.
And Lisa.
Aye.
And Dan Pearson.
Bill, aye.
All right, deja vu all over again. We're at Wheaton College. So we have a representative for Wheaton College.
Yep. Anthony Damiano, GZA, Geoenvironmental.
And we're just bringing up the figure. It'll take a little bit of electronic time.
Great.
Figure
I'll see it.
it is visible.
Okay.
It may, yes, merit a little bit of enlargement.
Would you mind keeping it zoomed out just a bit so we can see the legend?
Okay.
Oh, the legend? Yep.
Yeah, and there's also a cross section down below too that I might highlight.
Okay, so if you want to highlight it and then let me know and I'll zoom in. So you
Then we can zoom in at the road. Yeah, that would be great.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm Anthony, and we're back after a continuance from last session. And since then, we've made several revisions based on the commission's recommendations from that last meeting, as well as from a site walk with Jennifer last Tuesday. And out of those, we were able to make some revisions, including, and if you actually zoomed in on the legend itself a little bit, please. So I'd just like to highlight the new symbology that we incorporated based on those requests. So we have the wetland line in green, and you'll see the flags labeled in blue, and then the 25 no disturb zone is now a light blue. Yep. The 100-foot wetland buffer zone is in that dashed dark blue, navy, and the erosion control line is that dashed brown and white alternating symbology there. And right north of that, you'll see the road itself proposed to be rehabilitated in the crosshatched black and white. We've also incorporated some new sedimentation control along the length of the road. We identified several stormwater outlets, yes, thank you, that we have surrounded with a few different types of erosion sediment control barriers. So you'll have that one there with the mouse is, where we'll basically just cut off around it to prevent any sedimentation coming from the work. We also have working right to left there, one by the building that will surround with the same material, similar to the one next to that. And then the different one is in the parking lot, which we identified as, if you scroll over a little bit more to the left, Jen, we've labeled that as our staging area. And so we will be incorporating a silt bag in that outlet for protection for any sedimentation in that area during staging. And so you will see that the extent of the sedimentation barrier has been maintained on the resource side, the wetland side, for the duration of the limit of work. And based on our conversation with Jennifer in the field, we reduced the sedimentation barrier on the building side to just be around those outlets. We appreciate that. Our client appreciates that as well, just to reduce costs there. And then I'd like to direct your attention down on the bottom to the cross section. So we have taken the requests from the last meeting and incorporated them into this cross section of the proposed work. You'll see in that dead center there with the cross hashed in the existing road, which will be rehabilitating in kind without widening or increasing the depth. So you'll see notes there for to that end. This is about 5-6 feet wide, and on either side of that, both sides of that, you'll see approximately a 3-foot wide plastic geocell, and that is remaining in place per the recommendation of the fire department. And if that is disturbed in any way during the proposed project, which we don't expect, but if it is, that will be replaced and fixed. And then working out towards the right to our protected area side, we have the sediment control installed there, both the bio wattle. They'll be selected, or the client will be selecting most likely the bio wattle from the proposed lists provided by the town, as well as the silt fence on the outside of that. If we want to jump over to figure 5 real quick, Jen, that has the details for those two.
Take a second because I have to open it and then close it again, but
one at a time, yeah.
Hang on 1 second. Figure 5. Okay.
Great, thank you. And so just to remind everyone of that proposed sedimentation control barrier, we have notes included there on the anticipated installation, and then moving down to the bottom, these have been added since the last meeting, these 3 controls details. And so you'll see the corresponding details to those that I discussed in the other figure, where we'll surround those inlets with the sediment control barriers. And really the main difference, or the different one out of those 4, will be that far left, which you'll see in the parking lot where we're staging materials. So we'll be installing a silt sack inside that catch basin to catch sediment. If that reaches 8 inches at any time, it'll be cleaned out. And I believe that's it for those details. We can jump back for questions on on figure 3. That'd be great.
What would be your anticipated duration of the project?
I'm told it's going to take about 3 days for all of it. They'll put in the control barrier first, and then about 3 days to pull the existing material. They'll keep that on site, mix that into the paver with some new material, and place that back down in about 3 days.
And so the removal, that requires the staging area, I assume.
What requires what, sorry?
The removal requires the staging area to store it temporarily until you, yeah.
That'll be mostly for materials and equipment. They're hoping to basically mix that on site where it is in the road. If they need it, they have that parking lot to do that mixing, but yes, you're correct. And that's in parking lot 8 labeled on the plan.
Any other questions?
No.
So I assume we have enough information to consider closing.
Is there
Is that a fair statement? Go ahead, Dan.
Well, was there some question about abutters?
Well, actually, isn't Wheaton College the only abutter?
I'd have to look in their file to see that, but I don't believe we had any abutters here at the last meeting.
Okay. Fine with me.
Yeah, there were 2 abutters, but no, I don't think we had any.
Oh, really?
Well, let me just check for hands up and
So in case you signed on later, if you have a question, just scroll your mouse to the bottom of the screen and the toolbar should show up and you should see the participants tab. You can click on that and then you should see a blue hand and it should say raise hand. You can click on that if you have a question and we can call on you and try to get that answered.
Well, if there are no butters, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to
I think we can close.
close the public hearing.
Yeah, and that's for file number 250-1062. I just did a quick check, no hands up. So we have a motion made by Dan Pearson and seconded by Lisa. So we can do a roll call vote. Dan Doyle?
Aye.
And Gene?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
And Dan Pearson?
Aye.
And Lisa?
Aye.
All right, so we can put together a notice, an order of conditions, which we'll be likely dealing with next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for the change of plans. Much appreciated.
Oh yeah, no, happy to. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, notice of intent, 250-1059, AR Building Company concerning 195 Mansfield Avenue for a proposed project to install stormwater management associated with construction of a 40B apartment building within 100 foot of bordering vegetated wetland. This is continued from 7/27.
Correct. We just got the fee for the peer review last week, and so they've only just started the peer review. They have requested a continuance to September 14th.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion made by Lisa and seconded, I think that was Dan Pearson, is that right?
Correct.
So roll call vote, Dan Doyle?
Aye.
And Gene?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Dan Pearson, I'm assuming is an aye?
All right.
And Lisa?
Aye.
I'll throw an eye on that, so that's continued. And we have now again this file number 250-1040 comes up. What's the procedure?
Correct. We received the peer review, and so we had a Zoom call with all the engineers and went over the issues from the letter, so we wouldn't have to go back and forth. And so they have some other issues to take care of, And I would expect revised plans before we would have a public hearing on that. But there were two issues. It's sort of similar to Island Brook, where the applicant is looking at the woods as fair, which has a different CN value than our peer reviewer, who looks at the woods as good. And that changes the pre and post amount of water on the site.
And the project involves removal of some of the woods, is that
correct?
Why there's, I see.
Yep, so there may be a little sticking point at that one, but you would discuss that when they're before us. And then the other thing that came up is that they can't meet the town's stormwater bylaw for TSS removal. Our bylaw requires 90%, DEP requires 80%, but all of that stormwater is coming from the roof. So they may be requesting a waiver for that.
Is this the Bernie and Phil site?
Correct. Yep, so we'll see all of that and have discussion on that. This is just an update. There's no discussion tonight.
So we don't need any motion on
Correct. Nope, nope, don't need to do anything.
All right, and we don't have any partial or full certificates of compliance, I assume?
Nope, the only thing we have is administrative approvals. There was a hazard tree at 16 South Highland, and I did approve that removal. And then you have minutes from 8:10.
And the minutes from 8:10, I think we definitely have enough here to discuss and approve those. Anybody have any revisions or comments about the minutes of 8:10?
Nope, I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes dated 8/10/2020.
Motion by Lisa and seconded by
Second.
Dan Doyle. All those in favor, roll call vote. Dan Doyle? Jean? Jean, is that an aye?
I was absent.
Oh, you were absent. You're right. Sorry. All right, so abstain from Jean and Ron.
Aye.
Dan Pearson.
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
I'll throw in an aye. All right, and then our anything.
So under new business, typically we do a reorganization in July. I don't think we brought it up last year, and we certainly forgot about it this year due to COVID. So is that something you want me to put on the next agenda?
No, we'll just keep going until Scott says no.
And I think we got to get Scott to back online here.
I think he's had a couple of meetings at work, so he couldn't make the last one or this one. Okay, so should I just leave that off the agenda for now, or do you want me to put it on? And
I don't know if any one of us here wants to jump into either the vice chair or the chair. Speak.
oh, slow down! I can't keep track of all of that.
You do such a wonderful, sorry, Julian, you do such a wonderful job.
All right, I think we can potentially wrap it up here. Oh, we have all this. You have all this inspections, violations. Anything to comment about that?
No, we don't have anything. Just a note that town meetings are coming up August 29th. It's a Saturday at 9 a.m. Articles were due. I did submit 2 articles, but then I was asked to hold off until the fall town meeting. Fall town meeting is October 17th at 1 o'clock. That's also going to be held outside. Articles were due August 20th. I submitted quite a few articles for that meeting. A revision to the voting bylaw was requested by some residents, and so we've made some revisions there. The capital budget for Edith Reed, I requested some additional funding there so we could finish the ceiling and the insulation, and then that building should be almost ready to open, and people can rent that for meeting space during the winter as well as during the summer. A little bit of carpentry work still has to be done too. I put in a request for funding in our regular budget so that we could order the signs for the Water Bodies Committee has been asking for signage at the boat ramps for a number of years, and it hasn't happened. So I just put it in our budget as a request just to get them the signs that they're looking for. And then there has been some, multi-use conflicts with people at those boat ramps. And so one of the things we discussed at a joint site inspection was to do a master plan of all of our water bodies and waterways access points so we could look at correct parking areas, designating parking areas. If some areas are only rooftop or car top boating, designate some areas only as motorized vehicles, having consistent signage for all of those locations. So not just the water bodies, most of the focus would be the reservoir, though we don't really have anything designated for that. But to try to make it really consistent, and then finally get the selectmen to sign the agreement with Fisheries and Game so that the 237 Mansfield Ave property can be an official boat launch area as well. I'm thinking there was one other article, but I can't remember what it is at the time, right now.
All right, so we're ready to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Correct.
I would first like to thank Jen and Melissa for their continued professionalism during the pandemic.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
All right. So we can entertain a motion and a second, and when we're done.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
And a second.
Second.
Yeah, made by Dan Doyle and second by Lisa, and we're done. We're not doing a roll call on that one.
No, you're good. Thank you, everyone.